It won't be for long, but yeah, okay, I'm back. Oh, we're live.
Yeah.
Hey, awesome. Hey, thanks everyone for joining. My name is Shreyas. I head marketing here at Plum. Um, Thanks so much, Anu, for taking the time. Before we start, welcome everyone to the fortnightly LinkedIn Live series that we run at Plum called People in Success, where we speak to some of the country's best people success leaders about building and scaling people functions and cultures. Just last week, we had the privilege of speaking to Swati Khanna about how investors and founders can work together to build great teams. And we're so glad to speak to Anuradha Bharat this week, ex-VP uh, people operations at Razorpay, about how we can keep growing teams engaged. So, Anu, before we start, a bit of a preface. Lattice released a report recently around, it's called the State of People Strategy 2023. They mentioned something very interesting. 41% of people leaders believe engagement is a top priority for them. This is a global report. 86% of people leaders are putting more importance on employee engagement than anything else in their list. Right? This is such a telling tale of our times. And to that effect, we thought who better to speak to than Anuradha Bharat, who's held such an important role and responsibility from being employee number 11, growing Razorpay from not just 10 employees all the way to 3,000 plus, but also pre-series A all the way to series E and perhaps even beyond. You've been so integral to building cultures, building people, building a talent pool, arguably one of the best tech talents in the country, tech talent pools in the country today. And all while the company is also growing, right? All while the company is improving its own performance. And we love to get to know a lot more about this. But before we start, of course, we've got a small little icebreaker, and I hope you've brought in your beverage with you.
Yes, I
We're
did.
going to play a small game of Never Have I Ever. It'll not take very long. But the way this is going to work is I'm going to say Never Have I Ever and set a premise. And if you've ever done that, you take a shot.
Okay.
Okay? Awesome. So, never have I ever wanted to be a participant and not an organizer of an activity.
Oh.
Oh, wow. Fantastic. Tell us a little more.
Um, Maybe certain events like the Y Combinator event that happened. I was part of the organizing team, but I would have really loved to be there and get get to know people from another side, and maybe some parties at Razorpay, where
Oh,
you
wow.
end up wearing the hat of that person who is responsible and not just letting yourself loose in the circumstances. So yeah, these two.
Yeah, awesome. Okay, second one. Never have I ever skipped an event organized by a teammate.
Like a office setup. Oh
Yeah.
no, no, no.
No, you've
I've
never skipped
never.
an event organized by a teammate.
No.
Okay. Do you remember when you skipped on all those parties that we invited you to?
Oh yeah.
Yeah, take a swing.
It wasn't deliberate. The parties, yeah, I can.
Okay, setting some context for our audience here. I spent some time at Razorpay myself, where I got to work with Anu and so many other fantastic leaders. Got to learn a lot. I talk about it a lot, even at my current job, thanks to the influences I've had. But we'll get a little deeper into that, and that's where I'll get to spill some secrets. But before that, question number 3: never have I ever had participation rate of under 50%.
For the events that I've organized, oh my god, ethnic days.
Okay,
I
again, a bit of a
calling people
secret.
out.
Yeah, I was employee 200 something at Razorpay, and my first Diwali, I remember you sent home 3 people for not wearing kurtas, and they had to go home or go to Forum, which was very close by, buy a new kurta, change, and come back in. And it was, yeah, it was scary, to be honest. It was, I was in, I think, month 3 of my job there, and I didn't know HR wielded that level of power and influence.
But scary
But
and fun later, right?
of course, of course. Then I became the, I sent
Yeah.
people home at
Yeah.
some point.
Yeah.
Uh, But awesome. Hey, now let's get into the meat of what we're talking about today. Employee engagement is such an interesting topic. That too, going through rapid growth. So let's get your 20,000 feet perspective on what does employee engagement look at team sizes of 10, 100, 500, and 1,000.
Firstly, thank you, Shreyas and Team Plum, and hello everyone who all of you joining us remotely for this session. We'll try and keep it as lively and candid as possible, and I'm really happy to be here to have this chat with all of you. Uh, Engagement, most definitely, I think, is one of the key things. Be it any size of the company, right? It could be it could be 100, it could be 10,000, but the underlying things do not change, however big or small the team is. For example, the values, the practices, people over processes, etc. I think all of these should remain constant irrespective of the team size. And you will see that a sense of ownership, belonging, the degree of commitment, uh, these slowly start to fizzle out when the org becomes too large. When team sizes are small, there are very few hands for things to be done. Everyone will end up doing multiple jobs internally. A sense of achievement, success, and ownership. I think these become very evident at these times. However, this is also the time when lasting connects to people, vision, purpose, and the organization happens. It is important to not miss this bus because it becomes extremely difficult to navigate through this as the organization grows or to inculcate these in later stages of an organization. Our values and beliefs should remain constants, uh, should become how we live irrespective of the size. That's the only way to scale engagement. So values are what drive everything, and irrespective of how big or small an organization, it's absolutely important for us to keep focused on making sure that we bring in a sense of ownership and belonging at all times of and at every stage of an organization's growth.
Wow. Okay. So engagement is a continuous investment.
Yeah.
Okay. Awesome.
Yeah.
You bring up a very interesting point about growing disengagement through growth, right? Like, let's talk
Hmm.
about disengagement for a second.
Hmm.
As your company is growing, it becomes difficult for employees to feel that sense of belonging,
Hmm.
to giving their 100%, going over and above, and delivering, beyond what's even required or what's asked of them. How do you curtail this? And
Hmm.
actually, the bigger point is, should you even curtail this?
Yeah. Whether we should curtail something or not is, I think, one point of view. And let's say from the company and its leaders. I mean, it's the basis where the measures are taken into consideration, right? See, I personally do not believe in reactive measures. As I mentioned earlier, the initial years have fewer hands and a multitude of tasks to be done. And as the company grows, the reverse is true. So you have too many hands to solve one problem. You no longer feel like you're getting too many things done. You're checking off multiple things on your checklist. All of these tend to bring down a sense of accomplishment in some way, right? So the number of tasks that you can check off from your list when it comes down, and you're in so many ways thinking about how and what is happening in your day-to-day activities, and suddenly you feel like you're not valuable anymore, or what you're doing is not as valuable as it used to be in the earlier years that you were working somewhere. And this is where I think the role of leaders play an extremely crucial role. Consistent communication with the teams, ensuring that everyone understands the vision, the purpose, and the impact of their roles in achieving that vision. I think all of these become very important for a person to feel that there is a sense of achievement for them. and for them to feel like they are engaged, they are important in the system. I think the leaders inputs, insights, all of these are what harnesses inspiration and drive for people to continue to do better and feel engaged. People draw a lot of meaning and value to what they're doing, that their work impacts not only their organization and their teams, but the ecosystem. And this is on the leaders. This onus is on the leaders to bring about that sense of impact that a person is creating in a system, and in their role and in their function, that they are able to relate to this vision that the company is setting and their role to help the company achieve that vision. When people realize that their roles have meaning and it can create a positive influence, automatically responsible behavior goes up and disengagement comes down, because suddenly you feel like you are responsible for it, you own something. So when you get that sense of achievement and that sense of responsibility, suddenly you will want to give more in the system, you will want to do more in anything that you're doing and be fully in it. So basically what we would do for the whole company, when the company is a very small setup, is what you will need to continue to do in smaller teams when the company becomes larger. So that way you have uh, too many things binding you to the vision, and you're still feeling responsible. You have that sense of ownership, you have that sense of mine, that oneness to the vision and the purpose that you're working towards.
Got it. Got it. Okay, before I continue, I'd love to have audience. Please drop in your questions. We'll take them towards the end of the session, but please keep dropping them in. So Anu, I'm a manager at a company that's growing. Right, I lead this function, and I fear disengagement. So quick tip for me from you as to what are those telltale early indicators or signs that I can watch out for.
Hmm.
And quickly, I realized when you said, hey, it's my responsibility,
Hmm.
um, keep them engaged. And it's honestly sometimes a byproduct of having them buy into the vision and purpose of their jobs. But what is something that I can look out for?
See, more than looking out for, it is more about what can you practice which becomes a habit, right? So what I have always seen is, what has always worked for people who are known as fantastic leaders, who their teams adore, is their ability to empower everyone. So it is more about you placing a lot of trust in them. It is more about you empowering people and giving them uh, that ammunition for them to believe in themselves, that they are okay to do it. What they should know is that you have their backs, but you are letting them do things the way they are supposed to do it and in their own way. That allows people to experiment, fail, succeed, but still having learned something about that process, and gives them the confidence that they can do anything that they want and anything that they want to achieve, which is in alignment to how the organization's goals and vision is. And it also allows them to see you as an inspiration to be the sort of leader that they would want to be. I think that is a very key thing that people a lot of times miss. Uh, they fear empowering people. They fear empowering people because they feel that it is insecure. It brings in a sense of insecurity in them that this person could do better than that. Whereas my point of view is, when there is somebody who is ready to take on bigger roles and successes, then obviously it is the team effort, and it is the individual's effort, but a lot of the confidence comes from the person backing them. So that would be one tip, which I think I've seen you practice that.
Thank you. Um, so I'll go back to my time at Razorpay, and one of the loveliest gestures I saw, and I had my colleagues also experience, was when I got promoted, there was a letter that was sent out to my parents. For Diwali, my parents received a box of gifts, box of sweets, I remember. And that was such a wonderful gesture and honestly unheard of, unseen in the startup ecosystem, at least back then. Um, what insight drove to something like that? Like what drove to that decision? And what kind of an impact did it have with having, that sense of belonging trickle down into engagement?
I'll ask you something. How did you feel when that happened,
It felt
Shreyas?
lovely. My parents felt even better.
Yeah. See, that's the thought behind it. Um, it is so heartwarming when you see that, right? To me, the most important thing is to do work that puts a smile on people's faces. And that was the thought that drove us to doing multiple things that we did. However, in 2015, we would send our annual festival hampers to our homes for the family to enjoy, and addressed it to their parents, spouse, uh, and the thought was to share joy and share good times. And we received a lot of love and kind messages for the gesture. Our families obviously know where we work, right? And I mean, they know that there is this company that a person goes to, this person's working there. That's what they know. But gestures like these make them part of our company. They feel like, they belong to, in our case, they belong to Razorpay. And that was such a beautiful thing to see. And it's a game changer because it's rather unexpected, like you said, from companies, whether it is a startup or a big multinational. And during COVID, there were several calls that I got from families, from parents, from spouses, about how we were doing and how is the company doing. Are our children, our spouses, are they okay? Are the others, the founders, okay? Are the team members okay? Is there anything that they could do? And they also called to seek help from us. And that realization that families care about not just their own, but all of us. I think Razorpay as a company made me believe that our company did not just have one person, but they truly came with the families, um, along with them to the workspace. So now, when that is happening, we decided that we had to find ways to ensure that we highlight happy things and bring in positive energy. That was also the time when too many things were uncertain. Companies were cutting costs, bonuses, promotions, merit increases, everything was being withheld in so many ways. And with so much ambiguity and negativity across the world, we decided that we had to find ways to bring in positive energy, bring in reasons for people to celebrate, and tell them that we understood the pain that they were in, or the anxiety that they had around all of this. And we wanted to bring in um, ways to celebrate good things that were happening. And promotions became a big hit, with families finding joy and reasons to bring that smile and positive energy back, and employees having this wonderful thought and idea around how much the organization and the people in it cared for their people, and they wanted to bring them all together. I think that intent came out brilliantly. And I remember that it was a time of lockdown, and it was also very difficult for us to get out of the house. And we had to get multiple permissions from different people and make sure that it was um, that we were all in the office premise figuring out ways to do this. And we were so worried about the delivery help that we had, because you don't know where situations could become difficult for them and all of that. But at the end of it, that smile and these notes and all the calls and the innumerable messages that we got made it all worth the risk. And to us, I think that is where we found our strength. COVID difficulties was unimaginable in so many ways, right? And we had no books to rely on. There were no situations like this that had happened previously, where you could go back and say, okay, this happened, I have something to fall back on, this is what was being done at the time. None of that. And then suddenly, we realized that all we could rely on was our sense of authenticity and the care that we truly had for our people, their families, and the reciprocation that we got from them. And we knew that we had to be strong and face it with grit. But what can we do together as a team, etc.? But I mean, a shout out to the founders and the leaders at that time. uh, Fantastic effort. I think the most amazing support that we got, which helped us sail through these tough times, I think it solidified the trust in the company. And Shreyas, I could go on and on about this, but I think you get the drift, right? So that's how
Yeah,
we
yeah.
started. To us, it has always been integral. It has never been just the person or the employee or the. It has always been everyone who has been part of it, because you take back these energies, right? And you bring the same energies back.
So now I'll just lead that into that, right? Because you brought up COVID, and I heard such good things about from everyone who was, had any form of engagement with Razorpay, not just the employees. For
Hmm.
the help desk you had set, the 24/7 help desk you had set up. The first floor was a complete help center. But there were also other things. You had your pet days, or you brought in CSR activities. I remember. I mean, now you have a chief positivity officer, with all puns intended. But the idea was, how important was constantly coming up with engagement activities? Did it ever feel like a chore to come up with more things, or was it honestly just an endeavor to keep people happy?
Okay. Mm, See, a lot of times, right? I think the onus, no, not the onus really, but a lot of times I think everyone wants to make everything a policy or an engagement activity. These things at Razorpay, for example, came to the team. It came very naturally to everyone, because that was what was ingrained in all of us, and that was what we had practiced right from day one of how we were and what we were doing. So, and to me personally, I'm not big on policies as a person, and I think people inherently hate policies. So for me, it is about authenticity and care, and truly feeling for people, that allowed us to be creative at all times. The other thing that I've noticed that always helps is to have a lot of informal connects with people, and you have to truly listen to what is happening and what is being said everywhere, and then you draw inspiration from what is being said, and figure out how you can convert some of these to a more responsive and a proactive approach to solving problems without making policies around it. um, See, post COVID, what happened is, there were a lot of anxiety issues, there were a lot of separation issues that pets had. So whenever I went to somebody, like, people would come and ask, Anu, is it all right for us to bring pets to work? Because I can't leave leave my pet at home. And he's used to seeing me at all times, and now suddenly I have to be away from them for so long. So instead of just jumping at it and solving for the problem, we really thought about what it would do. Having pets helps the pets, helps the owners, helps to bring cheer around in office. So what you're doing in turn is you're solving for a much bigger problem, without ever thinking that it is a problem for you to solve, and rather going at it with the right intent of wanting to do the things. And like I said, these things came very naturally to a lot of people at Razorpay. Yeah, be it the HR team, and I'm a firm believer that people problems are not restricted to HR alone, right? The idea of HR needs to handle all of this is it's passe, and we deal with youth who think very differently, and we stop looking at traditional and conservative approaches to solving problem. Leaders and family members have become very strong influences when you have all of these. And you are coming together as a team to demonstrate that you truly care about what your organization stands for. What direction are we headed in? How do we want people to perceive not just the people practices that we have, but about how somebody would look at workplace itself? I think these were thoughts that were always there with us. So it was never about us wanting to bring in a policy to make the social media go crazy about it, but it was more about, if we did put that in social media, is this going to inspire somebody else? Will this make different organizations come up with themes and events that will truly matter to them, and they are near and dear ones? It could be humans, it could be pets, it could be anyone, but is that bringing a smile on your face at the end of it? And how do I create that environment is extremely important for us to be thinking about. So
Awesome. Awesome. Yeah, no, thanks for sharing. I'm I'm beginning to feel like culture and engagement are so intertwined from your answers. And what I saw from very close quarters, of course, was Razorpay had a bit of a party culture, like, continues to have a bit of a party culture, rather popular for it. Um, and there's a lot of ancillary activities that are not initiated by the founding team, by not initiated by HR, right? This is just groups that are encouraged or allowed to have their own fun at their own in the means that they most enjoy. And what role did you find these ancillary activities in building that sense of belonging towards? How would you, like, if you had to do it from scratch again, would you do more of it? Would you do less of it? Was it just perfect?
oh, I think there's always more room for fun, right?
Yeah.
But yeah, I don't think, like you said, it was never about Razorpay conducting parties all the time. What we did focus on was the element of safe space. Fantastic peers. This allowed people to find their vibe in different things, right? We believe in fun, we believe in rejuvenation, and if you have to work for an organization today, be it a startup or any other place, you are in an always on mode. You're constantly in that. So in some ways, for you to find friends at work and creating that safe space where you can trust your colleagues, and make them your friends, and it goes beyond that, where you truly like them, you like hanging out with them, you feel like you can have fun, you can learn from them, and you can contribute to so many things. All of those were what we were trying to get in the workplace. And when we started off, even as a 10-member team that we were, it was never about us just working all the time. We really enjoyed what we were doing, and it was in the true spirit of that. And as we scaled, we still wanted to have that, but that could only come when you can bring in trust in people, you can bring in that sense of, hey, this is mine and these are my peers, and I can trust them and I can be friends with them, and I can have fun with them, I can learn from them. So that is what contributed a lot to bringing in uh, this party culture at Razorpay. See, this closeness uh, that allows you to spend time with each other, have fun outside of work, and still be able to do the best job, because now you're not competing against each other, you're working towards one purpose. So without ever saying, hey, you need to work together as a team, you need to work together as a team, look at that one purpose, all of you need to align to the same goal. This was one way of very easily achieving that. So it was not so much the party, that it was more about the companionship, the friendships that were getting blossomed in this, and the trust that they were able to bring on each other, and solving problems together. At the end of it, I think that contributed to their individual success, team success, and Razorpay success in turn.
Yeah.
We're
No,
still
I
friends
mean,
with so many of our colleagues, and I mean, I know I still get calls right from the housekeeping staff to so many people at Razorpay. I think at the end of the day, that's what you're truly, truly, truly blessed to have, right? So many
yeah.
people who care about you, who want to be around you, who you can draw inspiration from. So I think that's where uh, that's where the party culture always helps. It's not so much the party, it is more about what happens in that and who you are hanging out with.
Yeah, yeah. um yeah, no, I totally agree. But one of the things I've started seeing now is like companies do a lot of forced unfortunate engagement activities, and COVID, I feel, gave made way for that. There's a Zabardasti ka, event that's happening on a Thursday night for mental health, and people are just already, I'm already tired at the end of the day. What's your biggest pet peeve about in these engagement activities?
You
Tell
know
me.
the
No, I'd like to hear it from you.
ethnic day. No,
Oh
just kidding. Just
my
kidding. Just
God.
kidding, Stress. Yeah.
But
No,
what are your
I
thoughts on overdone engagement activities?
uh
How does everything help?
making I think people try to make everything a policy or a process. And like you said, all of these are forced events. What should happen is you should have a diversified set of things, um, and you should have that in periodic intervals and allow people to just join or not join. It should never be forced upon anyone. I'm a very firm believer of breaking monotony in anything that we do. And when we break monotony, what happens is you tend to think a little more clearer. You tend to not focus on solving that problem a particular way. You get new ideas, you get to do different things, etc. I also feel that the alignment to a company's vision and becoming one with the org is what drives engagement, right? And what starts off in some of these as a honest intent, somehow eventually when it's overdone gets abused and gets very difficult to follow through, not just for the people but even for us, because you tend to have these policies and matrices that say I need to have 10 engagements. But it is not about having 10 engagements, it is about having the right kind of engagement that cater to different set of audience, and them joining this and finding the fruit of it on their own, and rather than just doing things. So to me, I think making everything a policy and trying to bring matrices around people's emotions and feelings, I think that's what people are trying to get to kind of check off things on their list, and that we should avoid.
My big read from all this is, when a corporate vision and the leadership think about culture, and that also, like, HRs are also employees, right? At the end of the day, their engagement in designing engagement activities also should be honest and earnest.
Yeah.
Um, Culture leads to designing engagement activities that are meant to do well.
Hmm.
And at the end, the engagement or the lack thereof is a result of culture, is a byproduct of culture, and
Hmm.
not something you can forcibly engineer through growth,
Yeah.
just through a list of activities.
Yeah.
It should stay true to who the brand is. It should stay true to who the people there are. And I'd like to hear a little bit your closing thoughts, and before that, we'll take some questions. And after that, we'll take some questions.
See, Shreyas, I've always believed, and it becomes stronger with each role that I play in every organization. I believe HR is an extremely powerful role, and I love that power because it gives me the chance to make a difference in somebody's life and create a positive impact in so many people's careers, in shaping their careers, their lives, who they become as people. Because what you do truly matters when you do it with the right intent and um, with the right set of people also, right? Because it's no longer just an HR's job for us to keep the company together, for us to, create these fun activities, to keep people engaged, to bring in performance reviews, everything, because everything together is a team effort. And that power that an HR holds to make or break a system and an organization can only happen with the impact and the positivity that you want when there is authenticity and honesty. people only resonate to honesty and authenticity. It's not about, all the jazz that people talk about. Can they truly see you as a peer, as another human being? I think that's what allows continuous growth in ideas, continuous growth in people. And then you don't really have to have engagement activities, so to say. You can just be, and it will automatically happen. People will automatically want to be part of this system, be part of this vision, this the purpose that you are in. So HR is an amazing role. I mean, I love my job and I love what I do, and I wouldn't change that for anything. But changing the way we think about people practices, the grit and the conviction to do the right things always, that, and doing it with the right intent all the time, and keeping that a continuous thing and consistency in that, that is what makes the difference from an organization being an organization to becoming a great institution. And that is the power that people hold in themselves, and that we should continue to harness, which is why I think empowering people becomes very important.
Wonderful. No, perfect. Thank you so much. Let's take some audience questions. Lezan Pinto, I'm sorry if I'm not pronouncing the name right, asks, if you find that people are starting to disengage, what are your strategies to re-inject the spirit of ownership and motivation?
Hmm. I think be honest, have a conversation with them, listen to what their problems are. A lot of times, people are not heard, they don't know who to go to. Disengagement could come from not just what is happening at the workspace, could be something in their personal lives that has affected them so deeply that they're unable to bring the right. The right energies for them to feel engaged. So, when you hear and when you understand what it is, and if you go there with an authentic interest in the person to really want to help them, then they will open up to you, and you will have your answer.
Wonderful. Earlier on, you mentioned that it's so often that it's the manager's responsibility to also re-inject this spirit of ownership and motivation. So Ashish asks, you have a disengaged employee with high potential and proven performance in your hands. What do you ask the managers to do?
Be patient. Be patient with the person, and try and understand what their priorities are. Are they in alignment to what your goal path for them is? Maybe they're very tangentially different from where the person wants to go versus what you think is best for the person. So have a conversation, understand uh, where they want to go, and what are your thoughts about where they should go. Let them give the person a chance to assimilate what you've told, to understand this, maybe have conversations with a few people, and then figure out if you're both on the right path. I think managers play an extremely important role, because these days, especially with a lot of remote culture happening, a lot of people having conversations only with their own team members and their managers have become a very strong influencer in a person's career and in shaping even their personalities. So be patient with them and try and understand what they want to do, and then lead them through that path. Makes it a lot more simpler and easier for you to never have a high potential person disengaged.
So what I'm hearing is actually have conversations and solve the problem. The answer is not just a team dinner budget.
Yeah, it's never that. Team dinner budget, people don't want to discuss this. They want to go and have dinner. They want to make merry.
Got it.
These
So
conversations have to happen maybe on a one-on-one level. It need not be in an office setup. It could be over a coffee, it could be over a tea, whatever it is. But it's not a team dinner. Team dinner is meant for you all to bond.
yeah, cool. So Ritika asks a question for you. Does the engagement strategy differ for tenured employees as compared to a new joinee? How to bring in synergy between the two?
It does actually. Ritika, fantastic question, and I think very thought provoking question for a lot of people. Like I said, a tenured employee would have seen a lot more. There is There's a lot of context to what is happening, and somehow that contextual information sometimes clouds somebody's judgment, but it could also have a lot of information for the newcomer to think differently as well. So in a lot of ways, when we are trying to solve the problem, we have to focus on what the problem is and not the person bringing the problem. When you disconnect person from the problem or the situation, automatically there is a different synergy that is working in both of these situations, where you are just focusing on this and you have to hear what the other person has to say. Let everyone get a chance. So a lot of times what we would do is, a lot of tenured folks would just give an opportunity for the newer ones and encourage them to come up with different ideas for this. What this would do is, this would boost their confidence, and then we would give contextual information of why some of these would have happened. And the spirit of transparency that a lot of organizations maintain also enables you to go back and look at other mediums for you to get answers to how some of these problems were solved previously. So when that happens, I think both parties feel secure in the space. And and uh, the question of disengagement comes in tenured employees, especially when they feel like they're not contributing enough. Because, like I said, if you go back to that point about fewer hands and multiple problems, a lot of tenured employees would have actually faced too many of these, and suddenly bringing in that importance, that sense of importance, all of these kind of gets taken away. So in both ways, we have to learn to balance and allow everyone to have a say in this, and go with the best solution that is right for the situation and the problem, not who got the solution.
Got it. Here, when you said at Razorpay, at least, you allowed people to bring in their tribe, right? Like tenured employees played a role in attracting new talent and bringing them on board. Do you find that that solved a great part of this challenge? Because when people hired, they've hired people that they kind of already liked, and they could bond with them, they could gel with them, and so they could. It had an impact on engagement from day one. Do you think that played a role?
It helps to bring in people that you know who will fit into the system, not who you personally like, right?
Of course.
Are they are they in alignment to this? So a lot of times what we would look for are people who who are hustlers, people who are agile, who are not afraid to speak their mind, who are not afraid to take no for an answer, who are not afraid to experiment with new things, etc. When you see, and the tribe need not necessarily come from only your connects, right? It could come from people that you know,
Of course.
and somebody that you've met in a social gathering where you're having conversations with them, and they are able to bring about a lot of these values in them, which will automatically align you to the purpose and how we want to shape our organization, what do we want to be known for. It definitely helped us make some of our values and some of the core beliefs that we had much stronger, because we had more people who were practicing it. Then that becomes second nature to how everyone operates in the company, so that had its merits. On the flip side, the reference checks, the references that would come for people on some of these, maybe they speak very well in during the interviews and the conversations and everything, but then they're not able to work in an ambiguous situation, right? And the transparency of how dynamic startups like Razorpay will have a lot of ambiguity in that helped make things a lot more easier and clearer for them also to get aligned to it. So some work, some don't, but then the transparency of where you are and the challenges that you have in your organization made it that much more easier for them to solidify their presence in the organization and succeed in the roles that they took.
Got it. Got it. Bhavya asks a very interesting question, and we'll be talking more about this in our upcoming session with Udayan Valvekar of GrowthX on balancing budgets and talent from the founder's perspective. But what is the kind of budget you can look at for engagement activities? And I feel like you'll also be answering this for every park around Banerghatta, uh, as well as people managers and people success leaders. But what is the kind of, how do you even go about setting aside a budget for something like this?
Very tough. I don't think there is a thumb rule. It depends on what stage and what are the funds that are available for every organization, depending on what their situation and what their expenditures look like. Having said that, we never had very big budgets for us to play with. What made a big difference in the way we were looking at engagement was more around the experiences that we were creating it and personalizing these experiences for people. That played a game changing role in how we were looking at budgets. During the initial days, uh, we remember that you have a smaller team. You can personalize some of these. You can definitely get to know people, understand them, all of that. And then you have decent budgets, right? We used to have roughly something around, if I have to throw numbers, we used to have roughly around 2500 rupees as budgets for various activities. And that seemed like a very small amount, but as the organization grew and the teams grew, those added up. And that compounding effect of having all of these, that made a lot of difference to budgets. But at all times, it was never about what was given to somebody. It is more about the feeling that you were able to bring out in a person. It was about the personalization. These the gifts that we were giving to our employees who were promoted, right? How much does a card printing a card with that letter would take? Sometimes they would be handwritten letters by us. And it's really the feeling that and the experience that a person had when they got something. That's what made a lot of difference. And at scale, what we did was, even our Diwali hampers that were given out, we would put the person's name on it and give it. That level of personalization made so much of an effort. So it no people stopped talking about what was given, but about how they felt when they got it. And that is what we should always try and look for, because you have different budgets that you can operate on. It could be 2000, it could be 10,000, it could be 50,000 per person. But what are these budgets, under what heads are they, and how are you making that person feel at the time that you're doing something? That makes the difference.
Awesome, awesome. Thank you so much for sharing. I mean, I have very fond memories of my time at Razorpay, and this gives me a great perspective on how you were thinking while you were designing and developing all such nice experiences for us through your wonderful team, of course. But thank you so much for sharing, Anu. And I don't think we have any more questions, but thank you so much for joining. It's been lovely having this conversation. I'm going away with a lot of learnings here. To the audience, we'll request Anu to answer a few more questions um, offline after the event. Maybe you can drop those in under the LinkedIn thread, and we'll request Anu to keep responding to them as and when she can. Um, Lovely to see such a large audience. Who I was joking earlier, saying this is no longer about Plum, or this isn't about the talent deck. This event was about Anu's journey. I think you've been quiet for a while, so thank you so much for agreeing to talk to us. It was lovely having you.
Thank you, Shreyas and Team Plum Talent Tech. I've really enjoyed this session. Brings back a lot of fond memories for me about the journey and thinking back of the times. It was fantastic. But Shreyas, we have to catch up, and
Absolutely, with better beverages.
yes, with better beverages. And to the audience, thank you very much. I've always loved interacting with all of you, and we'll continue to do more of these sessions. So thank you, Shreyas, Team Plum, and Talent Tech. I'll see you soon.
Cheers.